Hey, friendos, welcome back. Hey, Eben. Hi, Grid, who's just standing behind me in a way that definitely isn't making me nervous at all. That's the Link's chair.
The Link isn't down here.
That's true, but if he comes down here, you gotta move.
Okay.
What are you printing?
A thing.
Cool. Detailed. Oh, are you printing them a ball so we can put catnip in it?
No.
Oh.
Could do that too.
What are you printing?
A thing for the voice.
Okay. I've got a catnip plant out front, and every now and then I pinch it. Every now and then I pinch off a couple of fresh leaves and bring them in, and the boys lose it.
Yeah, hi, man.
So high, man. I like rubbing it on all of their heads so that they start like licking each other. It's really fun. I'm not used to you sitting behind me. It's just, I like it. It's just, I'm stressing out. Like maybe I'm gonna do a bad job at streaming now.
I'm not here for you. I'm here for your chat.
Oh.
To do chat things.
All right. So now we need 5. So we've only got 2 more rounds of people to go. And I am just squeezing the shit out of this rubber ducky. Pretty sure she's correct now. Because I think I had her picture wrong. We still have a little to learn about Susan Ford. This I felt was tenuous. This connection right here, this felt like... But I guess it did say we're gonna have to make a lot more assumptions. Yeah, I don't even know what to do next. So, hello, Rubber Ducky. You're the one. Crocodile Clementine. Oh, right. I have national news now? News Time did a small piece about a fight between Sims and Crocodile, but tried to approach it from a different perspective. Their goal was to paint a picture of the 2 men involved from others who knew them best. Not only did they manage to interview Sim's wife, Carla... Sure. Oh, no, that's Sim's wife, not Crocodile's, as well as multiple staff members at his school, but they hunted down Colleen Webb, Mark's ex-wife. Good song, good song. Nope. According to the section with Colleen, she and he met when he was working for an airline. She worked in an airport newsstand. He was a drinker and would often had wild mood swings. When he was charged with assault of a fellow pilot in 1975 and lost his job, they divorced. At the time, she was pregnant with their second daughter, and she felt she needed to get out before things got worse. She left him and moved to San Diego to live with her sister and told her oldest that her dad had to fly planes for the army. She raised them both by herself, and although she never went through the trouble of changing their names legally, they used the Webb name so that nobody would connect them to her ex-husband. Okay, so they're both girls. No, they used the Webb name, but she didn't change it legally. So they're both Clementines, as far as this is concerned. Colleen Webb. That's the one we had before. I'm not sure where to go from here. Yeah, there is an accessibility feature that just brings you to the right periodical. And like, at this point, I'm kind of wondering if that would just save us some fucking time. All right. Assault of a fellow pilot in 75. But it doesn't say where. Actually, let's turn that on because I'm bored of... What? Okay, we didn't find this one either. Picoti magazine is kind of sleazy, so they're not afraid to publish a few details that a more reputable news publications normally wouldn't. You look up the Billy Sims incident, and it seems they did report on it. You gain a few new bits of information, though it might not be useful. Billy Sims was once arrested for throwing a Molotov cocktail at a company that was found to be testing their products on animals. According to the police paperwork, Crocodile Clementine's bail was paid for by Tostarito Jacobson. It was fairly expensive. Picoti interviewed other students that were at the event to find out if anyone knew anything, but the word going around was that Mark Clementine showed up because his daughter Mary was graduating that night. I'm gonna assume that that's the oldest. Okay, maybe their name is Webb then. Mary Webb in San Diego has a website called Webb on the Web. Apparently it's a personal travel diary that also doubles as an advertisement for her travel agency. There are descriptions of Mary's services, including booking flights and cruises. Almost all of them involve extremely niche audiences. It seems Mary is the #1 agent when it comes to booking spiritual vacations aboard ghost ships and in specific hotel rooms that are said to be haunted. She also has a dedicated section for more traditional modern cruises that cater to specific groups, such as fans of boy bands. In the diary entries, she talks about the trips she's personally taken and uses that as an opportunity to feature descriptions of amenities and excursions that the ships offer, even when you're on them to see a specific band or a ghost. There's also pictures of ships, hotels, landmarks, and places she's visited, as well as a picture of Mary herself with a ship in the background. One of her diary entries actually mentions the day that the photos were taken. She was allowed onto the ship on a port day in San Diego with a professional photographer she knows. The photo of Mary has been added to your evidence. Paranormal travel agency. She's apparently found in the photograph of a ghost ship from the 1800s. It was lost at sea and turned up without any crew several years later. Mary Celeste? Nobody knows exactly what happened, but fans love to tour it and come up with their own paranormal theories. Corporate composition photography. There's also another name that we have to go search for Billy Crocodile. I already forgot the name. Corporate composition photography. Corporate composition photography is a photography studio that was listed on a few different sites for businesses in San Diego. It seems to have been possible to hire them to take professional quality photos for businesses of all sorts. As far as you can tell, it appears to no longer exist. The company is also mentioned on a photography site with some IRC chat logs. It seems like the site is the personal page of a member of an IRC photography channel. They have archives of logs they've been saving since 1993. One of them was from '96 when, quote, Val, the former head photographer from Corporate Composition Photography, did a Q&A with their users about taking pictures for promotional materials and print ads. Most of the questions and answers are pretty technical. They not only seem irrelevant, but generally go over your head. One of the questions, however, mentions that Val was on the cover of Telephoto and asks about Iraq. The question was quickly shut down by the person running the Q&A, who said, Val does not wish to answer any questions from his photojournalism days, nor does he wish to talk about LBP. Please keep on the subject of commercial photography. Interesting. Great. All right. Should we keep yanking on this one, or? Yeah, I think you're right, Evan. I think it's a good call that we turned it on. Omni called you a nerd.
I read.
I have to say, for one of my friends, did I tell you guys this? One of my friends, not Sarah, had a bridal, well, we took her on a bridal shower, sort of. Very small, but we went to a witchy spa. And we, burnt candles and put different kinds of salts in our foot bath and, made little brooms. And it was so cool. Oh, so did Grid. It's okay. You can both be old together. It's alright.
Still do, from time to time.
Alright, Grandpa.
Everyone on Discord is.
They'll still have IRC in the home, I promise.
Discord is IRC, with flashy badges.
I love you.
So is Twitch.
Did you not? He just said that.
I might not be making it in the mic.
I don't know, the mic's moving when you talk. I already forgot the title. Corporate Composition Photography. No!
I didn't search it like you did with Telephoto?
I can search in the web. Raiders! Mischief! Hello! Thank you so much for the raid! Grid's here too. Oh, apparently I didn't set raid to be anything different. I'm so sorry I failed you, Grid. Oh, I don't know if I clicked on.
It's
That's already on?
Starts on.
Oh well. I hope y'all are doing okay. Oh, you're not in the US. I was gonna say, I hope you're not fucking melting like we are, but you're probably not. You're probably fine. This this is the Roottrees Are Dead. If you ever played oh, I forgot the actual title. Something of the Obra Dinn. It's like a...
You're an investigator.
Yeah, we're an investigator trying to build a family tree for reasons. And now we're on to the second half of the game. This was the first half of the game, and now this is the second half of the game, but everybody, like, was screwing around behind everybody's back. So I'm really enjoying the interface, and it's very funny because I have a keyboard here that Grid and I stole, let's just say, from a building, and it's basically just like if I were in a public library in 1993. I have to fucking jam on this thing in order to get it to register, so it's very immersive. But this second half of the game is getting a little tedious, and we're utilizing our hint rubber ducky. Well, it was a building. Oh, well, I mean, it's still a building. Listen, if the doors are not locked...
And it's abandoned-ish.
And nobody's been in there ever since 1993, and you leave old computer gear in there, I should stop confessing to crimes. I just, I miss being a teenager when trespassing wasn't a felony. Is it a felony now? Is it a misdemeanor?
Yeah.
I don't know.
Third class, probably.
Grid likes to say his favorite word in the English language is expunged. Directly into your lapel pin? Great, great. Yeah, we were cleaning. Cleaning up. Urban cleaning. All right. How the former head photographer... I mean, I can search CCP, but that seems like I won't get the right... But why Iraq? Oh, maybe let's... No, there wouldn't have been...
Look up Iraq.
Yeah, I'm gonna. Maybe he did...
LBP.
LBP? Ah, yes. I don't even know what LBP could stand for. Oops. Fucking hell, I hate... Okay, I love the interface, but also I hate it. Lower back pain. Laura's bras and panties?
If they had Easter egg that.
How did you think this would be related to your search exactly? Touché! Lower back pain is a pretty serious problem. One recommendation seems pretty useful to you. When you're sitting in front of a computer for hours doing genealogy research, it's recommended you to try to sit with good posture. Additionally, standing up and stretching once in a while could be useful, as long as you don't strain yourself. Luxury bridal photography is a photography business, which is a good start. Unfortunately, it seems like it's located in Ireland, and its owner is named Nicholas. He goes by Nick Luxury, but you doubt that's his real name. It's very unlikely that this is related to what you're looking for. Mr. Luxury has a website, and on it you find a scan of some paperwork that proves your suspicions correct. He wasn't actually born Nick Luxury, but rather changed his name legally last year. His birth name was Michael Luxury. Rude. Lincoln Baby Photography seems like a solid lead, as it mentions Val and an award-winning photographer on the page. It's a business in Beacon, New York, and on the site it has pictures of a baby and a camera captioned with Cam Lincoln reaching for his namesake. I guess he takes after his father, Val. Occupation, baby. Yeah, I really want to change my name to Mike Luxury. All right. Lincoln Baby Photography. Okay. Really? Okay. So we still don't know anything about her sister. Let's go back to Crocodile Dundee. Tostarito. Seems fake. Fuegos Fiesta, a regional Mexican fast food chain, held a competition in 1993 that offered free meals for life to anyone that legally changed their name to Tostarito. The Tostarito was a burrito with a cylindrical tostada shell inside the flour tortilla. Isn't that the Crunchwrap?
Yes.
That is a Crunchwrap. I'm calling him Crunchwrap now. According to a few different sources, Crunchwrap Jacobson used to be named Lucinda. How the fuck is that? Huh?
Checking the periodicals.
I did. Oh. Okay. Let's try Mary Clementine in the periodicals. Interesting.
Val's last name.
Yeah, but that's done. I guess we can look up Val Lincoln. Oh! Val Lincoln was featured in Telephoto. The cover, which featured one of his photos, as well as portions of the article, have been added to your evidence. Well, I'm assuming that's the other... Yep, that's Clementine. So that's the other sister. Telephoto is a photography magazine. This 1992 issue focuses on the photos of Val Lincoln, a photographer who went overseas during Desert Storm. He won the Sepia Award for photojournalism, specifically for the photo on the cover. Val got his start in high school when he took a photography class because, in his own words, he, quote, couldn't decide what else to do and thought it would be the best career in the world to shoot for Playboy. But he quickly found that he had a knack for it and began to skip lunch in his free periods to spend more time in the darkroom. After graduating, he tried to pivot to landscape photography but didn't have any passion for it. I work much better when I'm trying to tell a story of a person or an object. He got lucky when a photographer mentor of his who was going overseas to cover the war decided to take a chance on him. Most people wouldn't call it lucky to go to an active war zone for no pay, but he bought my plane tickets, all my meals, and even pulled some strings so we could rush my passport. For someone that had never had a real job or even left California, it was a hell of a break. Val was only 19 at the time and shot the photo that won him the award the third night he was there. The photo depicts Lisa Clementine.
That can't be his daughter either.
Why? What do you mean? It's not, it's Mark's.
I had him on the wrong double.
Oh, yeah.
Sorry.
No, you're good. Who lost an arm in Operation Desert Saber. According to the article, women were not subject to direct combat, and Lisa was in a vehicle at the time. The vehicle had to pull over suddenly when the road ahead was partially destroyed, and she and a fellow soldier were severely injured by a landmine. Val says, I ran into Lisa just after her surgery and took this picture. Then, until she shipped out, I kept finding excuses to go back and take more pictures of her. I guess it was fate, because that's the photo that won me an award, got me into your magazine, and also led to my engagement. Just earlier this week, she agreed to become Mrs. Lincoln. Okay, so... I've got him backwards. That's fine. It just said his daughter, Mary, was graduating, not his oldest, Mary. Okay, that's fine. So that should be 1, 2, 3, 4. Assuming we've got Sonia correct. Great, so that's done, theoretically. Rubber ducky. I did! What? Are we looking for... Okay, is that not her current job? Fine. What are you talking about? Lisa Lincoln is, according to a military website you find, an amputee who lost a limb in Desert Storm. She runs a support group for fellow veterans in Beacon, New York. She makes another appearance, listed as a professor at West Point, a military college. Fine. Still think that counts as military, but fine. She teaches classes that contribute to their environmental engineering major. Her short biography on the staff page mentions that she had a passion for the military from a very young age due to erroneously believing that a family member was an Air Force pilot. When she later learned that to be untrue, her passion remained and she joined ROTC in high school. From there, she enlisted. After returning from Desert Storm, she earned her degree and relocated to West Point to teach a few years ago. Alright. Okay. Now what? I looked up Grandorf Dove. Oh, but I have more periodicals now. Did we read this? Grandorf Dove was a school for the deaf near Butler and was regularly listed in articles with other local schools. The Butler County Times archives include I hate this fucking song. Stop.
Switching base.
Weekend events began 7 years ago and stretched until the last mention in 1990. Amongst the avalanche of useless information, you almost miraculously discover one useful article. Grandorf Dove was at the center of a crime article from 1982. It seemed that someone defaced the school and vehicles outside of the brand new Hudson wing of the school. There were multiple broken windows, and one of the teacher's cars was painted with profanities and accusations of infidelity. A few weeks later, a follow-up article provides more details. There was one arrest, Thomas Hughes, who was coincidentally a former student at the school. Apparently, the destruction came weeks, oh my god, after he married the school's newest teacher, Mrs. Hughes. She was not a teacher when he went. He graduated a few years earlier. According to the reporter's investigation into the police reports, trials, and restraining orders, Mr. Hughes was convinced that he was not... Oh, it's Susan's... Yep. She worked... According to the reporter's investigation and the police reports, trials, and restraining orders, Mr. Hughes was convinced that he was not the father of Mrs. Hughes' current pregnancy. He was released on bail, and the school had agreed to not press criminal charges after an agreement was made to pay for the damages and for the couple to begin the divorce proceedings. It seems Thomas Hughes, Mrs. Hughes, and the Hudson Wing have all avoided further appearances in the Butler County Times. Okay, this is the one that we read. Okay, maybe we didn't see this. The Hudson Wing was an expansion to Grandorf Dove, now Grandorf School for the Deaf, built in 1982. It's a separate, much smaller building, half a block from the main campus, and operates as a smaller, independent school that offers free ASL courses for the family members, friends, and caretakers of deaf children. According to their history site, they got their name after the president of the Roottrees Company generously donated $250,000 towards the construction of the building. There's also a very vague history section that you can somewhat fill in with details from the other information you've seen about the school. It mentions that the donation came at the insistence of an employee of Roottrees at the time. It mentions that she learned ASL from the main school before the Hudson Wing even existed, to surprise her future husband, who was deaf. After realizing how useful a service like this could be to non-deaf people that wished to better serve those with hearing issues, she convinced Roottrees management to invest in the school. The Hudson Wing opened, and she became the first teacher at the new campus. At first, it only operated on weekends, but since then, it added afternoon classes on some weekdays. Thomas Hughes. There's another picture of Susan Ford somewhere. Yes, Ganondorf, you got it. Why? Okay. The Miami Mercury is a now defunct newspaper that merged with the Miami Sunday. The resulting newspaper, the Miami Mercury Sunday, went out of business. It seems at some point during this process it was at least partially archived and available via your periodical search. Okay, well, why did I want this, though? Okay. Sounds good. Guess we're not doing that anymore. Alright. The Miami Mercury had an article about the Bess Williams section in the Boca Doral Library where it was being built in 1928. It mentions that Bess's young son, now an orphan, was in attendance during the dedication. It also had a later mention from 1949, the last year the paper existed, about a bidding war for a planned expansion of the library in 1950. The bidding was won by Wildcat Construction and included a new statue, fountain, and a second room that would double its shelf count. Wildcat Construction was mentioned once in an article you've already seen about the expansion of the Boca Doral Library. It was also mentioned earlier in 1947 under the headline, Constructing a Better World. Frank Wildcat Williams left Florida in 1941 a construction worker and returned a hero. He won the Navy Cross for his bravery and sacrifice, having carried a fellow soldier to safety under heavy Nazi fire. Now he and his wife Ophelia are carrying fellow soldiers through tough times at home. Wildcat Construction is Frank's company focused on creating opportunities for soldiers finding difficulty getting back to normal. Ophelia has handled outreach for the wives of local veterans who are often able to provide insight into their husbands' needs and conditions. She has, through such outreach, found 13 veterans of the war to serve as Frank's employees. The community support has been unendingly and overwhelmingly positive. It's gotten to the point where if Frank bids on a project, other local companies have decided to step back and let his soldiers handle it. This has become a bit of a sore spot for local politicians and business owners, as the bids are often not as low as they expected. The problem for them is that essentially Frank has a selective monopoly, but any attempt to circumvent it has caused an uproar and accusations of being un-American. It's uncertain what will become of Wildcat Construction, but at least for now we're rooting for them. Interesting. Frank Wildcat Williams is listed on a few different military history websites. He was awarded the Navy Cross Medal in World War II, and the story goes that even after being struck in the arm with a bullet, he managed to carry a fellow soldier through enemy territory on his shoulder over 2 miles. He died in 1996, age 74, in a retired community in Sweetwater, Florida. An obituary on the website of a local news channel that was written by a surviving family also sheds light on some of his personal life. He grew up an orphan because his family died in a hurricane when he was very young. He could barely remember his mother and had no memory of his father. After the war, he ran a construction company that mainly hired World War II veterans and did a lot of jobs in and around the greater Miami area. He was a born joker and a shining light to those veterans who needed it most. An anecdote mentions that he used to insist he married his wife Ophelia as a matter of courtesy and convenience. She wouldn't have to change her last name. A photo is attached of Frank in his youth juggling hammers in front of one of his construction sites, as he was often known to do. According to this article, he is survived by Ophelia as well as his daughters, Barb and Sharon Williams. I guess. That seems too convenient. Okay. I don't know. I feel like that one was a stretch, but all right. Whoops. Hey, newbie. Thank you for stopping in. Oh, okay. 28 and then 49. All right, fine. Cuba by Cubans is a book of paintings of Cuba released in 1963 and credited to Marcia Barban. On second glance, it still doesn't seem related to your search in any way. Well, fine. TR-49, I have not seen that. I did. Okay, didn't show me Barbara. Barb Williams is a motivational speaker, and she has a website that explains the services she offers. Her company's address is listed as Coconut Grove, Florida. I don't know who that other photo is. One I've got hanging around. Barb Williams advertises her career as a motivational speaker online. The flyer includes 3 different testimonials from Greta Jones from WQTV 12, Vic Elmsworth from the Keuka Falls Gazette, and Isabel Crosby, the superintendent of Benton County. Her story will surprise you, uplift you, then energize you. A lesson that anyone can take something away from. Okay. An intimate evening with... Why can't I read today? A truly wonderful message. She can customize her message for any audience. I don't know, media mogul? Public speaker, maybe? You know, I do like the classic red, gotta say. Greta Jones is, according to a flyer in your possession, the morning news anchor for a channel called WQTV-12. Unfortunately, WQTV-12 has no online web presence whatsoever. You do find it listed on a giant list of television call signs next to the city Springfield under the heading Effingham County. You may need to do a deeper dive on a specific city and state to see if any locals have discussed the news in that area. Effingham County is the name of 2 different counties in the United States. One is in Georgia and the other's in Illinois. Okay. When you refine your search to television in and around Springfield, Georgia, you come see it's just I feel like it's doing too much for me, and it's not really leading me to come to my own conclusions. It's kind of just like expecting me to put in words here, and then it's bringing me to the conclusion, which I don't love. Maybe I'm just going too fast, and I'm kind of tuned out a little bit. My fault. That also is possible. Hi, Zeno. The list seems to only feature broadcasts with female news anchors. The person who runs the website has ranked each using 3 categories. None are relevant to journalism. One of the entries is Channel 12. The news anchor is listed as Greta Flores. Greta Flores is a news anchor who apparently used to go by Greta Jones before her divorce. Compared to the ordeal you've gone through to simply figure out her current name, it's way easier than you expect to find that she has a website of her accomplishments. She was apparently the MC for an all-female speaking tour in 1977. The tour was called Storytellers of Sisterhood, the Mothers and Daughters of Earth. Grid! Thank you so much for 103 months! Okay, that should have made my thing fire and it didn't. So, unless it's gonna in a second. Oh, you're right here. Oh, you were doing it. You were watching. That was a test. It failed. Sorry. Sorry. I probably didn't set it up right. Oh. Okay. Sorry. You do a search for it. It seems some of the stories were compiled into a book simply titled 25 Stories of Sisterhood by Isla Hale. Alright, this is an anthology of stories told on a few different Storytellers of Sisterhood tours. It contains direct transcripts of the most well-received stories told on stage. Isla Hale is the editor, not the sole author. One of the stories, by Barb Williams, has been added to your evidence. Oh, poor Grodd. Barb Williams has a transcript of a story she told on stage, published in a book. The first part of the story focuses on two 16-year-old girls. My sister Sherry was a brat. Always sulking, often disobedient, never on time. She borrowed things without asking and even ran away from home only to sneak back the next day like nothing had changed. My daughter, Sharon, on the other hand, was a beautiful person. She had excellent marks in school, was intensely artistic and creative, and even volunteered at an animal rescue. She continues to tell stories of the two girls until she shifts the narrative. What was the difference between Sherry the brat and Sharon the beauty? Is it nature? Nurture? A better education? Different opportunities? The answer is nothing. There was no difference, because my sister and my daughter are the same girl. What? Barb reveals that her daughter was the result of an unexpected pregnancy when she was only 15. I met a boy at a county fair. Unlike us, he lived in the nice part of town. He went to the good school. To a teenage girl, it felt like a fairy tale. But there were boxes all over his house. He was moving in 3 days. Those 3 days were heaven to me. The final night, he surprised me. He told me he could actually see me again soon. He planned to return to visit his grandparents. I thought I was giving him a reason to keep his promise. I never saw him again, and when I finally got desperate enough to ask around, a friend of a friend told me he hadn't even given me his real last name. Oh no, it is this one. Oh, I see what happened. Barb also talks about when she found out she was pregnant. I was convinced my life was over. But my parents, they took charge. I had to live at home and work a part-time job, but they removed the burden of motherhood. I managed to scrape out a degree in English, and as far as my daughter was concerned, I was her much older sister. Barb uses the story to come to a conclusion. When I was younger, I thought my sister was a brat. And I wasn't wrong, but she ran away from home to work at that animal shelter. She borrowed my clothes for presentations at school, and her creativity allowed her to open up Sherry's hair. It took me far too long to realize that the beauty was always there. In fact, the brat and the beauty exist in all of us. It was my inner brat that kept me blind to the truth, and I'd like to say it's the beauty in me that's finally able to see what I was missing. I implore you to call upon the beauties in yourselves whenever the brat tries to take hold. There's a Sherry's Hair in Orlando. The owner of the business is listed as Sherry Yastremski. Sherry has a large van and on weekends can bring the style of Brittany, Christina, or even Rachel to your door. The About Sherry section is very, very long and presented as one paragraph with multiple run-on sentences and no pictures. You get the sense that if she were to do your hair, she'd be doing a lot of talking. It mentions that her husband Pete was her late husband's college roommate. She and he had never spent any significant time together until she became a widow, and they built a charity together. They left the charity behind because it was growing beyond their ability to run it. She also brags about her kids, Tony, Mark, and Cricket. Oh, that's correct. Okay. Her oldest, Tony, seems to get the short end of the stick, has 2 listed accomplishments that are he's the oldest and he's a straight A. I thought and that he's straight. And he's a straight A student. Mark, on the other hand, has multiple basketball accomplishments listed. Apparently his Little League team is nationally recognized. Cricket York is near the end and has an entire section dedicated to her. She's an actress on a local television show called Library, and the reason Sherry relocated from Miami to Orlando. Sherry, in addition to being hireable to come do your due, is a stylist for the show. The passage also mentions that her agent recommended they change her last name to York since it was easier to pronounce. The rest of the section describes how she got to that part, but it seems unimportant to your search. Yastremetsky. Okay. Library is a children's show filmed at a studio. Berry is a children's show filmed at a studio in Orlando, Florida. It's been on the air since 1991. In the show, multiple adults and children interact with different animal puppets in a small town called Library. Unlike some other popular shows involving non-human performers, this one isn't funded by the public. Instead, it's paid for by donations from businesses related to education. This includes textbook manufacturers like Corrithmetic, tutoring companies such as Educate2U, and a few well-known publishers of picture books. From what you can find, it's syndicated in a few markets across the southern United States and in New Hampshire for some reason. Like most other children's entertainment, many of those that grew up with it tend to have fond memories. That works in your favor because the show has been documented by a few fan sites. There's even a library web ring, though it only has 3 entries. You click through the sites in the ring and find that Cricket York joined the cast in '97 at age of 5 and is still listed as a current cast member. A picture of Cricket from one of the first episodes has been added to your evidence. Corrithmetic is a math textbook publishing company. They were in the news last year when a primetime news program did a full comparison of their 4th edition textbooks from 1996 and their 5th edition textbooks from 1998. Schools were complaining that the 2 editions seemed remarkably similar, yet Corrithmetic was charging almost double for the newer edition than they had for the previous one. The news program announced that between the 2 books there were only 16 total changes. The most noticeable was that the cover was changed from a picture of a water droplet creating concentric rings on a lake to a close-up of a feather. I feel like I had both of those books. The other 15 were all instances of changing 4th to 5th. This even led to a geometry problem where the book asked students to calculate the 5th side of a rectangle. Nobody associated with Corrithmetic seems to be related to your search. Educate to You is a tutoring service. They have a deal with Library and feature some of the actors from the show in pictures on their website. According to the site, they actually provide tutoring for all of the actors and actresses on the show. That's actually a union regulation. You're required to do that, so good job. And I don't even think that's a union regulation. I'm pretty sure that's a federal regulation. Sorry, got distracted. They dipped into my knowledge base. Included is Cricket York, who is seen in a photo labeled Cricket and Her Brothers, ready to learn from one of our talented tutors. You don't find much about Educate to You, except there seemed to be a small subsection on library fans who were deeply unsettled by the company's logo, which would appear right after the credits on each episode. One writes, I was terrified of the little girl in the Educate to You logo. She looked like some kind of demon doll, and I'd race to the TV every day to switch the dial before her creepy laugh came on. Okay. Then let's go to... There is no Kikuwa Falls anywhere in the world that you can find. The closest thing to a Kikuwa appears to be in New Zealand. Instead, a man named Chris Elmsworth has invented a small-town newspaper as a conceptual art piece. The Kikuwa Falls Gazette is a series of online articles about small restaurants, shows, and other tourist attractions across the United States. This is presented as a monthly newspaper of small-town America. What makes the Kikuwa Falls Gazette a bit strange, other than that, is that amongst the articles detailing real locations are occasional stories that present outlandish, inflammatory concepts in extremely mundane ways. For example, on the homepage right now is an article entitled "Mermaids Strike Back Against Lobster Farms," that, using very dry language, details the idea that the mermaids in Maine have begun to unionize in support of better benefits. There are no punchlines, and the articles are not marked any differently than the rest. Unfortunately, each current issue of the paper is presented on the homepage. There are no archives of older issues. Vic Elmsworth, according to his own personal page, is apparently one of 3 brothers. All 3 of them are contributors to a newspaper called the Kikuwa Falls Gazette, and he tends to focus more on the southeastern United States. All of the articles he's written are archived on his site, including the long-form version of the review for Barb Williams' motivational show from 1997. According to Victor, he had seen Barb talk more than once. On this particular occasion, Barb's talk was at a very large church, and it was clear she was an expert at matching the presentation of her concepts for any particular crowd, because she received a standing ovation. Barb started with a story about loss, specifically the loss of a bicyclist who had been hit by a car. She spoke about the death of any person as a darkness in their loved ones, a cold, empty void that begins to creep into a space where there once was light. Because the light could never return exactly how it once was, she says the only option is to nurture new sources of light to help fight back the darkness. Her conclusion was that finding the hidden meanings in tragedy is the most important thing we can do. She used multiple biblical comparisons and finished by looping back around to her initial story and how she personally began to come around to this ideology. The biker who died was her son-in-law, and the Lanes Across America charity was created to fill the newfound darkness her daughter experienced. It, the charity, was the light that began to fill the void, and she was doing everything she could to help nurture it. Lanes Across America, or LAA, is a charity focused on adding bike lanes to major cities. The pages and pages of news articles that mention Lanes Across America have a similar summary in them. LAA, formerly LAM, was founded in 1987 after the death of Drew Smith. Drew was biking home from work when he was hit by a car. Each year since, Lanes Across America has grown, and they now have offices in over 12 major metropolitan areas, including Miami, where the charity began. The website for the charity has a picture of Drew. The photo has been added to your evidence. Can I have that whole picture? Searching for Lanes Across Miami does narrow down the pages and pages of articles you found earlier to only those with a more in-depth history about the charity. LAM was formed in 97 and became LAA in 87. It was founded by Sharon Smith after the death of her husband. Sharon and some other board members stepped down in 1992 and the current leadership took over. One of the articles has a full uncropped version of the same wedding photo from the LAA website. It seems that after Sharon left LAM, they began to crop her and the rest of the wedding party out of the photo used to fully focus solely on Drew, who is the face of the charity. Yep, and that's probably Barb. Interesting. So that's not the right 5? No, that's not right. Okay, all right. That was my fault.
Hi again. I know you probably thought you were done. But it turns out what you're doing here might have some pretty major repercussions on the family tree.
Again. Also, there's something really strange happening. I can't explain it.
Neither of us can.
I'd call it a simple misunderstanding, but it's digging at the pit of my stomach. I just have a feeling. Clark?
Last week, let's just say being the president, sometimes people bring me things.
Just skip to the important part.
Right. One of our janitors brought me some hair she'd found in Ruby Spratt's trash. It was Bonnie Hudson's. Bonnie is Guy's sister. She'd sent us her hair to test potential root trees, since her DNA is closest to Guy's. But Ruby threw it out, and I wasn't sure why she would have done that. Especially right before we began testing the tree you provided. When I asked, she told me she thought the samples needed to be fresh every time they did a test.
It seems really odd. Ruby was the one who convinced us to do DNA testing in the first place. She seemed so knowledgeable. I don't like it. You've done more of a deep dive on these people than anybody else has. Clark will keep a closer eye on the DNA tests from now on. You have an eye for anomalies. We need you to find the smoking guns.
If there's anyone you're 100% positive can't be a root tree,
or any you've got definitive evidence are root trees, then we might be able to catch Ruby in a lie.
Oh, come on. Oh my god, I don't think I can do this. I think this is the author that was tailing him. His name I don't remember. Oh, Ruby Spratt graduated from the top of her class at the Mideastern's Legal College. Her valedictorian speech was somewhat controversial at the time, as it was quite serious, with a heavy focus on wealth inequality. Yep. This didn't go over well with the predominantly middle to upper class audience in attendance. The editor of the Herald at the time said Ruby, unsatisfied by simply earning her place at Mid-Eastern with a full scholarship, went on to earn a captive audience of her peers with a perfect GPA. It felt like the ideal occasion for a celebration of an undoubtedly incredible individual. However, by the end of her speech, there were many in the audience that wished neither of those events had transpired. It was a passionate attempt to use her soapbox to proselytize her fellow students and their parents into the religion of poverty, but unfortunately, judging by the silence, they remain unconverted. Uh-huh. Ruby, I think we read this one. Yeah. I don't know how to find a picture of her. An anonymous woman appeared on the cover of Newstime holding a picture of her daughter, Jane Doe Roottrees. The first and only mention of the phrase anonymom in Newstime came the week after when they issued an apology for featuring her in the first place. It was determined through DNA tests that Anonymom's daughter was not a Roottree. This article, which did refer to her daughter as Jane Doe Roottrees but did not coin the phrase anonymom, came before all that, right around the time of her first TV interview. This is a summary. An anonymous woman appeared on the cover of Newstime shortly after 5Ps was confirmed to be a member of the Roottree family. In an homage to the previous cover, she holds a photo of her daughter. Unlike 5Ps, she wished to remain anonymous, and both photos were obscured. The anonymous woman claimed to have had an affair with Guy Hudson while she was working as his secretary. She and another woman were hired at the same time during a transition period where many of the secretaries that had worked under Zach Morden were already gone. She says that she and the other woman were both underqualified, as neither had typewriter experience. According to other staff members interviewed, Guy had his own requirements for hiring women. Guy Hudson liked to throw lavish parties, and the longer he was president, the more excuses he found. The anonymous woman posits that these parties mostly seemed to be an excuse to have after-parties at Guy's home, featuring much more alcohol and other substances. She claimed she slept with him at one of these after-parties. She confronted Guy when she found out she was pregnant. Guy didn't seem fazed, and they came to an arrangement. He paid her a significant amount of hush money on a reoccurring basis under the table. She used it to move away and start a new life with her daughter. When Guy died, the money stopped coming, and she assumed things had run their course. She went back to work at the department store and hoped that nobody would ever look too closely at how she paid for her house. She told everyone that her daughter's father walked out one day and never came back. She claimed that after seeing the fantastic article in Newstime, she realized that she wasn't the only one this happened to. While she never worked at the Roottree company at the same time as 5P's mother, Joanna, their stories seemed eerily similar, and she knew Felix was telling the truth right away. The article presented no tangible evidence of the anonymous woman's time at Roottree, and all of the payments were allegedly made in cash. However, using details that she provided to Newstime, the reporters were able to reach out to the other woman hired at the same time, who also remained anonymous. They successfully fact-checked the timeline of both women and confirmed the existence of the infamous after-parties. 5P's case was strengthened, and the news story was subsequently published. Alright, maybe it's not Sicily. Picoti is not afraid to expose details that other publications would avoid. Shortly after the announcement that Jane Doe root tree was not a root tree, Picoti exposed personal details about the story of Anonymom under the headline Anonymom the Anonicon. They said Anonymom worked as a manager at a department store in North Carolina, and her daughter's name was Courtney May. They also said that the woman vouched for her famous cover story. They didn't identify news time, perhaps to avoid being sued. Is named Corrine S. Yep. And she'd filed for bankruptcy. The article speculates that Anonymom and Corrine were in on it together, and even speculates that they might have been lovers. Picoti is not a credible publication. Their information wasn't particularly actionable. Very few people seemed to notice or care. Courtney May has a simple website with black text on a white background and a few images. From the view counter, you can tell you're one of only a few hundred people who's visited it. She's not shy about claiming she's Jane Doe Rootree. As proof, she's posted an unobscured cover from the time she was featured on Newstime, as well as a different picture of herself that appears to be a wedding photo. The website seems to be created in defense of her mother, who has been the target of public scrutiny. Under the headline of The True Story of Jane Doe Rootree, courtesy of Courtney May Newton, formerly Watts. Courtney May writes, "Everyone has everything wrong. My mom approached the Roottrees before 5Ps was ever on the cover of Newstime. Nobody at the Rootree Company took us seriously. They only listened to us after we appeared on TV and magazines." The site has a scanned letter from Ruby Legal Group to Courtney May's mother, Beatrice. In very polite legal terms, it seems to accuse her of exploiting their name and orders her to leave the Roottrees alone. It's dated from a few weeks before the 5-piece article appeared in Newstime, and it seems legitimate. Courtney May also discusses her mother's magazine feature in more detail. "Do you know how difficult it was to convince anyone to tell our story? My mom didn't want to show her face because everyone in the media we approached assumed she was lying. Because her story was just like 5Ps, but my mom's story was first. Mom was advised by Ryan and Cork to tell Newstime that seeing 5Ps on the cover was what inspired her to go public. That was the only way Newstime would agree to it and get her to help her get on TV. But it's not true. Our story was first." Courtney's defense continues, but much of it seems repetitive and useless. Toward the end of a page, she discusses the DNA test in defense of her mother's character. "My mom is amazing. She's the nicest woman in the world. She has diabetes and works at a department store, but still manages to help pay for my apartment in the big city that I could stay with my high school sweetheart. I got a degree in nursing, so I learned about DNA in college, but I'm beginning to think it's all a lie. Mom is 100% confident there's nobody else who could be the father. Either they did the test wrong or the DNA is complete BS. She's not a liar." Who's that blonde person that I'm missing? I mean, this is the only secondary photo I'm missing, but she has different hair. This is a different person. Okay, I don't know why that's a different than... Who was that directly left of Guy? The first affair he had, Joanna Robertson, who was the mother of 5 Ps who started all this. Ryan and Cork is an unremarkable law firm based in North Carolina named after its senior partners, Winston Ryan and Gregory Cork. The firm mostly handles local cases and recently represented Anonymom. Their website has a section about the case, including a scan of the DNA test results that proved Jane Doe root tree was not a root tree. Hold on. This is testing Jane Doe to Bonnie Kellogg. Oh, right. Okay. Yes. That's correct. The test says there was virtually no chance that Anonymom's daughter, Courtney May, was a root tree. It lists that DNA from a Jane Doe was tested against the DNA of Bonnie Kellogg, née Hudson, so Ruby definitely gave her own hair. Guy's twin sister, Ryan and Cork, who are representing Anonymom, have confirmed that the samples they sent to the root tree was definitely Courtney May's hair. The test is from a company called Denatico, and a doctor has circled the results and signed the paper. Denatico, okay, is a DNA testing company. DNA testing is a relatively new phenomenon that allows scientific laboratories to prove a possible family relationship between two people. It's fairly cutting edge. The method by which they test samples has only become standard in the last decade, as the early 1990s. According to their site, Denatico was responsible for the DNA test that proved Felix Fellows was a root tree, and even used it as an example of how a DNA test looks. They use it to provide some information about their process. Whenever they take a sample in person, they put the name of the person on the test according to their legal ID, which is why it says David instead of Felix. Because Guy Hudson is dead, and there is no known DNA source for Guy, they tested Felix's hair versus a hair sample that was sent from the root trees. It's listed as Jane Doe because it wasn't collected in person, but the root tree company let them know it was from Bonnie Kellogg, Guy Hudson's sister. This is why it says it's a paternal aunt test. The left and right sets of numbers are essentially signatures that perfectly match the DNA of the two people in question and nobody else. The way the test works is that if certain parts of the signature are shared, then it's very likely two people are related. As far as you can tell, Dinatico is a legitimate company. They don't seem to have any reason to create fake results or hide the truth. Adrian Rowland. Okay. Yeah, but on the other one it said Bonnie. It said Bonnie. Yeah, so that's weird. Because if Bonnie sent in, that should also say Jane Doe. Gina Clementine email? Oh, I don't remember reading this. Mary Beth Clementine came to Butler County a few times and played religious hymns at the Miracle Congregation's church. She's mentioned 2 times, though the first visit from 1949 was significantly more substantial. Miracle Congregation welcomes Mary Beth Clementine with open arms. The article mentions that the church's leader was moved when he heard Mary Beth's recording of one of his favorite hymns, His Eye is on the Sparrow, and He's watching over me, and reached out to her personally. His Eye is on the Sparrow holds a very special meaning to me. As you know, I've had a very difficult upbringing, and it's no secret that my own eyes have always been a source of struggle. This song is about overcoming sadness and hardship through Jesus. If God can find a way to watch over every sparrow, he can certainly watch over those made in his image. My family's fortune does me no good as a man of the Lord. It's much better spent spreading his word, and I felt kinship with Mary Beth ever since I heard her voice. When I learned her personal story, I knew I had to help her in whatever way I could. The Bible is full of adoptions from Moses to Esther. Spending your life taking care of those helpless to help themselves is incredibly noble. She and her son are welcome to stay in our guest home. The second visit was a few years later in 1953. The article mentions that her first visit was a massive success, and at the insistence of Miracle's congregation, she's returned for an encore performance. It also mentions that the unusual circumstances of her second son's adoption have prevented her from touring recently, but doesn't clarify. I don't think he is a root tree. I think he is a root tree. feel pretty good about this one being a Rootree, and I think we found all of his info. I don't think he is a Rootree. I think he is. Alright, what did we just see? Jacobson. Oh, are they not? Interesting. There's a crime blogger article about Edith Jacobson that also mentions a Helen Rootree and a Lucinda Jacobson. In 1971, when she was 18, Edith and her sister Lucinda were arrested for trespassing at the Miracle Congregation Church in Butler County. They were pretending to be church employees in an attempt to get into the room where the church houses their weekly tithings. The church didn't press charges. They were caught by Helen Rootree, who was there at the time, with her husband Miracle, who was away preaching, or while her husband Miracle was away preaching. Helen Rootree was quoted as saying, "Jesus forgives and so do we. The Lord works in mysterious ways, and I'm confident he has brought these young women to us for a greater purpose." So, Toasterito, Crunchwrap Supreme Jacobson, bailed him out of jail. Could be a relative. Yeah, so that's all there. I think I feel pretty good about. Dirty Devil was 5P's first mixtape, released as Dirty Davy from the early 90s. There's discrepancies and debates about what year exactly it was released based on some of the pop culture references, with the range thought to be somewhere between 92 and 94. One of the songs, Yes I Can Jump, seems to be at the center of the confusion. Some fan sites claim that there are multiple versions with different track lists and song lengths on them, though because there's very little evidence from the mixtape online as it is, it's even harder to verify that information. Yes I Can Jump is a song that was on 5P's mixtape Dirty Devil. It seems to be the only song that didn't make it onto a studio album that people thought should have. In it, he references a popular movie from 1992 called White Men Can't Jump. This reference has caused some confusion amongst the fan base. Because of it, it's agreed upon that the mixtape had to come out in 92 at the earliest, but others point out that Fellows references seeing the movie on his 17th birthday. This would have been in 94. Some take this to mean that the album had to have been released in 94 at the earliest. Others claim that he was just likely trying to make himself sound older, since in response to some of the more questionable lyrics, he stated multiple times that he was just a dumb kid when it was released. So are we... I guess I don't really understand what the purpose of this is, unless it's to cast doubt onto his timeline. 5 Ps is popular and attractive enough that even though his music is not targeted toward teen girls, they seem to be paying attention anyways. While he hasn't done any interviews with the magazine, they've listed him among the hunky hotties for the past few months with small bios that tell you various facts about him. This includes his real name, his birthday, his star sign, and when he grew up. A letter to the editor also claims that it's not possible he was born in 1977, as he claims on a song called 17 Magazine that he turned 17 in 92. The editor responds with a statement that they've reached out to his agent to ask about the song, and were told it wasn't performed by 5 Ps and they shouldn't print rumors. Okay, so then I think this maybe means he's not a root tree. But they already tested his DNA. I'm sorry, I'm really flagging. "17 Magazine," sometimes referred to as 17 Magazine, is the title of an unreleased and controversial song by Dirty Davy. There's mention of it on a few sites, claiming that it was on the first release of his first mixtape but was removed. There's no audio or visual evidence of it existing, but there are independent accounts from people who've claimed to have heard it, and they do generally line up. According to their recollection, it was about many different loosely connected occurrences of the number 17, mostly violent. Intro states it was written on Davy's 17th birthday and involved a fictional but glorified series of murders at a fashion show for a teenage magazine with a similar name to the song title. The person doing the violence was apparently trying to beat Dahmer's high score. Okay. Due to major acts of gun violence in schools earlier this year and the subsequent backlash against violent music and video games, it's generally considered in very poor taste to bring it up. Most of the people that enjoy mentioning it online are either trolls trying to shock people or come from the morbidly curious corners of the internet. It? Yes. Yeah. Not Team Blast, thank you. Searching for Lan Xinyu separately brings up much fewer results than Lang Tai. Lang Xinyu was even featured in Business Watch in '92. She missed out on Watchman of the Year, but did have a pretty sizable article that mentioned some of her history. She was born in 1947, the first of 2 children. Her mother was already in her 30s when she had her, and had trouble conceiving a second time until 3 years later. This was Xinyu's sister. It became clear that her father was not going to have a son to pass the family business down to. This is how Xinyu became involved. Her father stayed the president of Lang Tai for a very long time, and his daughters grew up. He began training them, and as his daughters grew up, he began training them in hopes that one of them would have a son who could take over. One helped him in China, and the other in the USA. Neither were given any official titles. When he died, due to societal dynamics, the business passed to his male sibling, a younger brother. Many in the know knew that this could be a problem. His brother was not a businessman and was not much younger than his brother. What? During his time, Xinyu essentially ran the company as her uncle's consultant. He began to have problems related to dementia, and Jinyu, who was already running things behind the scenes, performed somewhat of a power play. She stopped working until the results of her absence began to cause problems. Only then did they admit they needed her. Okay. Lang Tai was mentioned in Business Watch fairly often in the last 20 years or so. There were a lot of articles about the rise of Chinese companies. Unfortunately, this makes the search results not particularly helpful. When you sort to find the oldest articles, however, one of the earliest mentions from October 1979 stands out as very unusual because it doesn't involve Lang Tai's business. The article details a new, at the time, medical industry. In vitro fertilization was brand new, barely a year old. After the first successful IVF birth in 1978, it seemed the industry began to grow, and a featured article about different companies all over the world and the costs that they could charge for their services was in Business Watch. This included a few cases of high-profile customers willing to pay a premium. Apparently at the time, the CEO of Lang Tai was Lang Hongbao, and his younger daughter Lang Jinyao and her husband could not have children, so in an attempt to create a suitable heir, he paid Quigenes? What? To have their child implanted in his older daughter, who was unmarried. The cost of this was approximately 380,000 yuan, or just over 100,000 USD. Hang on. Got a little Juggernaut mask here.
It's Batman.
Oh, it's Batman. Yeah. Why?
I don't know. I wondered if he'd go for it.
Great.
I think it's a little tight for him.
His ears are back. Good boy. Good boy.
Touching me, bud, so I can see what I need to do how I need to change it.
Daddy, you need to change it by don't. He's purring. A little tight on the cheeks.
A little short this way,
Yeah.
and a little tight that way.
Nina's got a flat head.
Gotta scale it up a little bit.
Great. So we'll have Batcat for Halloween.
If he'll wear it, yeah. I figured trying it after he was a little stoned seemed like a good time.
Is he still stoned?
Yeah.
Ah. Okay. Oh, Key Genes, pronounced Key Genes, was a medical company with operations in both the US and China. They made international news in '94 after a whistleblower came forward. Apparently, their services were in some cases falsified. While they did often perform IVF, the whistleblower proved that a few of their customers paid for a very different service, an alibi. Their company would claim they performed IVF on someone who was already pregnant to create a cover story for high-profile families who did not want to give up the child but did not want the shame of an unmarried mother. The whistleblower claimed that they had helped do this at least 6 times, but only provided proof of one case, the daughter of an American politician who is unrelated to your investigation. Keygenes shut down soon after both founders have reportedly fled to Lebanon, where there is no extradition to either China or the US. I guess... Just did. It's where we are. Did I spell it wrong? Keygenes' company was mentioned in an article you already read about the head of Lang Tai, but then again, later in 94. There's a long article that spells out a huge controversy. It seems that a whistleblower came forward to the US government about Keygenes, which was said to have been founded in China by a partnership involving American and Chinese medical specialists who then built their medical facilities in the US. The article mentions the whistleblower's claim. Keygenes will sometimes claim they performed IVF when they did not. This would often be used as an excuse for an otherwise unexplainable pregnancy. They'd fly their clients to America, where they'd stay for an extended period of time, then return to China with the news of a successful IVF pregnancy. The whistleblower apparently presented the Department of Health and Human Services with credible evidence. At the time of the article, it was still an ongoing investigation, but Business Watch speculated, after copies of the proof were leaked to various media sources, that they couldn't imagine a world in which the company would be allowed to continue operations without facing serious legal or financial consequences. Keygenes was a company that was in the news when a whistleblower came forward to say that they would often claim to perform IVF but were just accepting bribes to forge paperwork. Newstime did have a few articles about it during the height of the scandal. They produced a hypothetical timeline of how a client would use the company. Generally, celebrities or other powerful people who found out they were unexpectedly pregnant would declare that they were going to use the service as soon as possible. During the final week of pregnancy, the client would travel to a Keygenes facility in either China or the US. Usually it was the opposite of their home country, so they could maintain a lower profile. They would then give birth and be photographed with the newborn. During their recovery, they would then stay on the premises for a few weeks to a month. This was equivalent to an extremely high-class spa. After these few weeks, the photos would be released and the birth would be announced as if it just happened. The extra time out of the spotlight would allow the birth to appear to be over 9 months after the announcement that the celebrity was going to use the service. Whoops. We're gonna go with is a root tree. Ah, thank you. I can spell. Nia Alves owns many forms of media in Brazil. Under the umbrella of Transmissão Paulo, Business Watch has mentioned her by name for a few times. The most relevant appearance seems to be an article about the struggles of American media companies to do business with their foreign counterparts due to differences in laws. A few media groups and countries are discussed, including those in Africa and the Middle East. Transmissão Paulo in Brazil is also discussed. Due to lack of freedom of speech laws in Brazil, there's been added bureaucracy in publishing certain stories on Transmissão Paulo's channels. Nia is extremely private about her identity and supposedly once used her connections to have a reporter fired from a rival network and blacklisted. The journalist claims that this was to shut down a story he was doing about a personal life, including that her marriage in '73 was not of her own choice. His research claimed that she essentially had her husband forced upon her as a child bride at the age of 15. It also claims that past appearances with her husband have been for show, they do not live together, and that she resents her own parents for the arrangement. The final claim was that she must have made her money under the table through nefarious and possibly illegal means during Brazil's dictatorship, as his research uncovered that she could not possibly have earned enough to start a media company otherwise. After making the statement, the reporter went into hiding in fear for his safety. Leslie Florence was the other actress besides Gwen Roottrees in Guys Like Us. Before Guys Like Us, she was in a few very small supporting roles, and her performance in Guys Like Us was generally thought of as quite good, especially considering she got second billing to Gwen. Even with the success and acclaim, she retired from Hollywood almost immediately after her co-starring role. Not much was known about her until recently, when Guys Like Us was re-released right at the tail of Roottree mania. Recently, as part of the myriad articles and research people have done into the surrounding Roottrees, it came out that she died of a genetic disease known as Huntington's in the late 1960s. Huntington's is a neurodegenerative disease that most recognizably causes memory issues and uncontrollable movements in the limbs. After symptoms onset, somewhere between the ages of 30 and 50, those affected by Huntington's typically live another 15 to 18 years as their symptoms worsen. There is no cure. Huntington's is passed genetically from parent to child. The gene that causes Huntington's works in such a way that if a parent has the disease, there's a 50-50 chance that their child will get it. Huntington's cannot be passed on recessively, meaning it cannot skip a generation. In other words, if someone has a mother or father with Huntington's, but they themselves did not receive it from that parent, their children and their grandchildren will also never have it. Until the early 90s, it was impossible to test for Huntington's. Instead, symptoms would usually appear later in life. This would often be after the person affected already had children. It would then be impossible to know if their children had it, as it was a 50-50 chance. In '93, due to determining which gene causes Huntington's, it did become possible to test children for it and know if the disease was passed on or not. For a variety of complex reasons, however, children are considered unable to consent to such a test and are therefore very rarely tested unless they're showing early symptoms. Oh, what's his name? I mean... Quinn. Wild Bill Williams, an actor known for his role in Fortune Favors the Grave, did not make an appearance at Gwyn Roottree's funeral. Because of his absence, there were rumors online he must have already died, but according to a reporter that tracked him down, he's still in his 70s, lives in Paris, and is in perfectly fine health. He even went on record saying, I think it was Mark Twain who said, "The rumors of my death have been greatly exaggerated." That seems appropriate today. The few years I spent with Gwyn were just one stop along the very long and complicated journey that has been my life and career. The last time we spoke was when I signed the divorce papers. She asked me never to contact her or the kids again. I've always respected those wishes. They never reached out to me either, even as adults, so I have to assume they have some idea of why she hated me so much and the sacrifices she made on my behalf. I wish them well and am sorry for their loss, but we've all been strangers for 40 years, so I can confidently say they wouldn't have wanted me to be there. In fact, I'm confident my presence would have ruined it. I mean, there's no reason she couldn't have been pregnant when they were splitting up. I don't have any reason to suspect that these boys are not hers. I have not found a lot of clues about, though, apparently. Comedian Penelope Tessa Green was part of a recent fundraiser at the Reno Comedy Club, the Laugh Lounge, about a month ago. The fundraiser was called The Best Medicine, and it was to find a cure for Huntington's disease. According to the website, she released a statement. Up until recently, I didn't know anything about Huntington's. In the last few months, I've gone from knowing nothing about it to learning more than any one person should ever have to. Until less than a decade ago, it was impossible to predict if someone susceptible to Huntington's had the disease, but due to advances in medicine, tests have been developed. Hopefully this increased awareness is the first step to finding a cure. Please join me for a night of comedy for good cause. The Guys Like Us remake has been discussed a few times on the website about upcoming films called Movie News. The logo is a cow and a film canister. Okay. The rumored cast is Cameron Diaz in the role originated by Gwyn, Linda Fiorentino, and Chris O'Donnell. According to Leaked News, the remake has been put on indefinite hiatus due to its director, who's speculated to be Ron Roottree, dropping out in the wake of a serious medical issue, though that's only a rumor. Okay, so he's not. But he is. Okay. Wild Bill Williams was mentioned as many times throughout the magazine's lifespan with stories and gossip about who he had been seen with in public, blondes mostly. 3 specific passages stand out. The first mentions one of his roles was under his real name, Walter Forsythe. The second is an interview. Although he doesn't mention her by name, you determined from context he's talking about Gwyn Roottrees. An apology to all the ladies, I'm actually taken. Earlier this year I did a friend a favor. He was directing a war movie and asked me to play a small part. Wait, hold on. While she was Harris, as an American reader on vacation in Paris, claims to have overheard Wild Bill and Gwyn arguing in public while she was holding a baby and visibly pregnant. Not long after, Gwyn announced she was divorcing Wild Bill and also that she was pregnant again. So I don't know if that's the same pregnancy or pregnant again. I don't know. Okay, do I have to definitively mark them all, or can I only get them when... Oh my god, do I have to be right in order to finish the game? Oh, yeah, if she... Well, I just don't... I kind of just don't trust the way that that reads. Because it was also Ron that was having health problems. Well, it was Ron that was having health problems, and if he had Huntington's disease, then... But Gwyn also died. Well, that was heart something. Alright, so let's make him not a root tree.
Beatrice and Courtney May. Clark, can you swing another test against Bonnie's DNA?
This time I'll be sure to have them verify both samples in person.
Using the family tree you filled out, as well as DNA tests, we were able to uncover the truth behind all the inconsistencies. Clark's handling the business, but I've come to thank you and fill you in on everything we've learned. Buckle up, because it's been one heck of a week. Actually, that's an understatement. It's not every week you discover your family company is being sabotaged by someone they trusted. But that's the kind of time we've been having. Like I said, buckle up. Maybe grab some popcorn. We'll start with Guy Hudson.
No?
Guy had a frankly ridiculous number of potential children. What shocked me is how many graduated from potential to confirmed. We can even prove he was aware of them. The smoking gun was how he used company money to pay off a lot of women. He hid it with a method inspired by his idol, Elias. 5-piece flavors. The flavors he was paying to research. were a ruse.
Yep, I should have seen that.
He developed flavors based on the initials of the women he was paying. Which was really stupid, considering one of their names started with X. Let's start with Christine. Guy was paying her under the name Caviar, but there were some other clues. James was born 9 months after Zach's party. Christine was there with Guy, and when she got pregnant, she panicked. Steve stepped up. He even turned it into one of his recipe stories. Not all of Guy's affairs led to offspring. He may have slept with Robin Martin, but she didn't have children, so we'll never know. Also, not every child of Guy's affair partners were his. Robert Garland was born after his parents had already moved to Boston. Skipping Beatrice for now. Up next is Lang Xin-yu. When Guy showed up in China, she was into America. And Americans. Dare I say redheads, even? When she got pregnant, her father paid key genes to fake IVF. They claimed her sister was unable to conceive, but her sister and Jerry had their own son, Mark. Sonia Alves was soon after. Nia was married at a very young age to a much older husband. She resented him. I don't blame her. They allegedly spent no time together in private. Guy was in Brazil during Christmas 1979. It's the only Christmas not in the records. Flavio was born 9 months later, and like the others, Guy started paying Sonia. Last was Susan Ford, hired to translate for Guy's overseas trips. It's easy to read into Guy's donation to her school, but there's no definitive proof there. She and Guy were witnessed together near the end of his life. Susan's husband was convinced he couldn't be the father of her daughters. Guy, though, paid double. The price of twins. So, what about 5 Ps? Felix Fellow's mother, Joanna, doesn't have a 5 pieces flavor. On top of that, his story doesn't really add up. His mother already left the company by the time Guy became president, and his lyrics indicate he was born sometime around 1975. Alone, that wouldn't necessarily prove it. But there are some suspicious connections between Felix and the company's current lawyer, Ruby Spratt. They both grew up in Portland, in foster care, and according to the local paper, they definitely knew one another. Ruby was the one who approached the Roottrees to begin with. It was all a setup. Ruby and Felix saw my book's challenge to the Clancet Trust as an opportunity. His mother really had worked for Roottree, and Ruby was a respected lawyer. She exploited my family's greed, worked her way into control of the trust, and ensured Felix got a piece. But they made some mistakes along the way. If you look at the 2 DNA tests that Ruby handled, they were both supposedly tested against Bonnie Hudson, but the 2 signatures that should both represent Bonnie don't match. After Clark and I confronted her, Ruby lawyered up. Ironic, I know. We suspect Ruby had Donatico test Felix against his own mother's DNA. He had a hairbrush of hers. They sent the female sample in remotely. On the second test, Bonnie's sample was tested locally, but Courtney May's was not. Ruby's been throwing away samples. We think she sent her own hair instead of Courtney May's, but it could have been anyone's. Ruby and Felix were in cahoots. As for why, they were both advocates of wealth redistribution. A noble effort, but once they controlled the family fortune, they became just as greedy as the worst members of my family. The money corrupted them. They were so eager to personally wield the wealth for their own cause that they sabotaged any other claims. That finally brings us to Anonymom, aka Beatrice Watts. Her tales of Guy's parties and payoffs were true. She even approached Ruby before 5Ps was on news time. Ruby used Beatrice's truths to make Felix's lies feel real, then ruined the DNA test so that Beatrice looked phony in the public court of opinion. I feel worst for her in all of this. While Ruby and Felix stole the show, there were some other potential new family members as well. Miracle Roottree was less of an open and shut case. That said, it's very likely he had a son with Mary Beth Clementine. Not Stuart. Mary Beth adopted him before she ever set foot in Butler County. That leaves Mark. The timeline fits. He showed up about 9 months after Mary Beth visited Miracle. And the basket baby story is a bit too convenient. If that's not enough on its own, he was also bailed out by the sister of Edith Roottree, Miracle Jr.'s wife, after she changed her name to win that silly contest. Our best guess is that Mark was told by his mother whose son he was, and used that fact to put some pressure on Miracle Jr. We have no real proof of that, but nothing else really makes sense for why they'd be connected in that way. Elias's affair was the most ambiguous. Gwyneth was able to coerce Elias to do things he wouldn't have otherwise done, like pressure to include me in the family. My son even mentioned them arguing about someone named Beth. Combined with Gwyneth's lisp, it's possible the name was actually Bess. Unfortunately, all we know about Bess Williams is that she wrote his book and died not long after, leaving her only son an orphan. The timeline fits with Wildcat, but there's no record if she had any other relationship. Honestly, I wouldn't say we had enough evidence either way. I wouldn't be surprised if Elias cheated. Of course, I'm a bit biased. Regardless, we haven't gotten in touch with any of the Williams clan yet. That means we haven't been able to do a DNA test. As Clark mentioned, from here on out, all of our DNA tests will be in person for both parties. Lastly, we have a bit of a curveball. Ron Roottree isn't related to us by blood. Gwyn was definitely pregnant, so it's likely Robbie is. When Ron and Robbie went to visit their mother at the end of her life, something changed. Additionally, there have been a few rumors circling around Ron. RR Productions canceled the Guys Like Us remake due to the director's illness. At the same time, Ron's wife Penelope began doing benefits for Huntington's disease, stating that she had become familiar with it. Huntington's is the same disease that Gwyn's former co-star Leslie Florence had. It's passed from parent to child. It can't skip a generation. Because Gwyn and Wild Bill didn't have Huntington's, and Ron seems to, it's impossible Gwyn was his mother. I recently confirmed all this with Ron. At the end of her life, Gwyn told Ron the story. Leslie and Bill had an affair the same year Leslie learned she had Huntington's. Leslie got pregnant. Leslie wasn't likely to survive to see her child grow up. And even if she did, she didn't want to be a burden. She begged Gwyn and Wild Bill to adopt her child. Gwyn did. Mere weeks after she found out she was having her own son, she also took in Ron. Wild Bill was a problem. Unreliable and a serial adulterer. Gwyn divorced him and never saw him again. Gwyn had already told Starlet she was pregnant, so it never really made waves when people saw her with a child in Paris. There was gossip during her divorce when she was discovered to be pregnant again. In actuality, it was the final months of her only pregnancy. To lay low, she stayed in Paris long enough that even her own family never had reason to question the timeline. It's one heck of a story, and frankly, nobody could be expected to piece the timeline together, not with what few mentions of Gwyn's past have survived. But the Huntingtons itself? That's proof. Ron suing Robbie to remove him from the Clancet Trust was a huge moment in my story, and a major catalyst for this entire investigation. Finding out that it's been pretty much backwards this whole time has been a bit surreal. So that's where we're at. Looking over the information you sent us was invaluable. You got everything absolutely correct. Why did we even bother hiring a team? You figured it all out solo. All this information, this entire story. It's a lot. in more ways than one. Some of it has the potential to destroy marriages and ruin relationships. We're handling it all very, very carefully. But we couldn't have gotten here without you. And with that, I guess our tale has finally, truly come to an end. What a strange one it was.
Right?
No words can express how grateful I am to you for untangling this mess. Honestly, I've had enough of my family's eccentricities and scandals for one lifetime. I imagine you have as well. And if not, well, there's always Elias's and Gwyneth's brothers and sisters.
Attention, attention, Roottrees. This is 5-Piece coming at you from the real world. You know,
I'm scared that anything with lyrics is going to get me muted. So I'm gonna fast forward through this and then we'll talk about it. Oh my god.
man, y'all are hypocrites. Sitting back in your massive estates, built from the cash that your ancestors gave you, acting like you somehow deserve it, based on your family's creations. Yo, but look at here, Sonny, don't you come for our...
Do I have to listen to this? Okay, thank you. Whew. I really liked this, but I felt it overstayed its welcome. I really feel like I could have done without Rootree Mania. But, like, I'm sure there's a subset of people who were just so thrilled to have more and worse. I'm sorry, harder. More and harder, not more and worse. That was mean. I felt like the second part just got a little complicated for the sake of it. Like, having to go down... having to check through multiple unrelated things in order to get to one little bit of a something. It ended up being just a little too much to hold my interest. But I think this was a very well-constructed game. I really liked the you know, like the interface. I loved going on the computer. I did have a lot of trouble effectively using the the menu. I don't know why I kept just constantly clicking all the wrong buttons, and that did not get better, ever. So I don't know what the fuck that problem is, unless, I mean, if that's a problem with my brain or if that's a problem that other people have had. I wish with how long the game was, especially the second half, I wish there were a couple more music tracks. Because every time we hit that one saxophone song, it seemed more and more often that I just really didn't like it. I would not have noticed the music as being anything if that one track that I wanted to skip every time didn't keep showing up. But I do not think that I want to jump directly into playing Blueprints. I think I need just a little bit of a break. So we'll play something silly or low stakes tomorrow. Maybe... I know there's a lot more... I know there's been a lot of Dungeon Crawler updates. I don't know if I'm interested enough to jump back into that, or maybe a little more Dome Keeper, maybe a little Slay the Spire, maybe that cat game Zetho pointed out, but soon, later this week, we'll start Blueprints. Is it Tuesday? But yeah, I thought this was awesome. Thanks, Ron, for the recommendation. I think it would have been perfect if it were just the first part. A little just succinct. I think a lot of times games are excited to give you more, which is awesome, laudable, very, very, very understandable desire. But maybe shouldn't always do that. But okay, it's 10 o'clock. I'm gonna go to bed. Well, I'm gonna go not to bed, upstairs. Not here. Thank you guys so much for hanging out with me. I will see you tomorrow.